Hello from Monterey. This is Gravel by California with Zack
and Vic, and we're here to preview the Lifetime Sea Otter Classic 2025 gravel race.
Today we're going to give you an overview of what to expect, whether you're here just to race or to enjoy the offerings of Fort Ord National Monument.
While you can preview the course during the trail's open daylight hours, of course the racetrack portion is off limits before the festival.
This is the 4th edition of the gravel race, and the courses only seem to get faster, and now offering 1, 2, and 3 lap offerings.
This terrain you would describe as hilly, not mountainous, as elevation only ranges between 800 feet.
Because of its position by Monterey Bay, you'll find the sand levels vary throughout the region, especially with some scarcity of trees to block the wind. There are dozens and dozens of trails here, and the course is very well marked, but don't wander off for munition's sake.
Each lap is 29.6 miles with about 2,800 feet of gain. At no point are you going to feel planar as it's constantly up and down. There are 10 peaks on each lap, and most of the climbs are under a mile, but they really count when you're out there.
Whether there's a checkered flag or not, the race starts on the racetrack, and you'll find there's ample space fitting about 6 riders abreast, with the road winding up that might hurt your perception of speed, beginning this 1 kilometer climb with a lot of intensity. Part of it amping up is hitting the pitch as you're looking straight at the bridge. As in every race, a good start is essential, but a little more in this one, important to fight your way for position off into the dirt, which will be one of the sandiest portions of the day, funneling into the day's most crucial bottleneck, with the tight turn making it just one person through at a time, coupled with a bumpy exit, making it harder to find a line to pass people. If you burned a lot of matches to start, you're not done yet, with one last pitch that'll take you to the highest point of the day, and you'll know it's almost over once you're greeted with this deposit of sand with no place to go but down from here. You have to be in the mindset to really turn on the jets, as this starts a 2.5 mile section that only gets faster once you merge onto Skyline Road, which is a big adjustment if you've never ridden this area before, while you may still be getting acclimated to your tire pressure, because I always sense some tentativeness in this segment, particularly losing out if you don't have maximum momentum on the rollers. But what makes this even more trickier are navigating around those unfamiliar who might wander across the road with restricted movement, not to mention getting wrapped up with these views. While the signage for the races are very well placed, be prepared for the split right after mile 2, as you're going to want to keep that momentum on the brief slowdown, as you'll get your legs spinning again on Oil Well Road, with the integrity of the surface staying the same, but the biggest difference here are the curves that await that puts you in the position of real braking for the first time today. People from last year's ride should be familiar with this section until we now forge ahead past the turnoff, where it's even more the same. You have to be aware of the road cantering away from you, so you'll definitely notice the surface feeling a little slippery, but take advantage of when it does straighten out to pick up speed again. After passing the 3 mile point, crossing Toro Creek Road, the pitches will not be as extreme for a considerable time. The pace can stay very high here for the next 2 miles. But an important matter to be aware of, even if you're not racing, is that there will still be hikers and other trail users around, so always pay attention to keep your head up in order to not have riders have to pass like this. Aligning with Sarah Village, you'll probably get the best cell phone reception of the ride, with the terrain soon shifting away from these grasslands, noted by the shift in momentum passing Station 1 Road, with the lagoon on the left, signaling the start of this climb, averaging nearly 6% for 1.4 miles, with the first third being unpaved, also paired with a gentle pitch at the same time, But as the road transitions to asphalt, it slants up a bit, and even more on the last third that may not be accurately reflected on GPS apps, with this section being one where you'll definitely have to get out of the saddle, forcing you into a double-digit type of effort, paired with a surface stickier than you would have hoped. And while you're encouraged, seeing the top starting to plateau, you still have a little bit of effort left to get there. It's worth it to get momentum going for the other side of this bell curve that, even with this descent clocking a little over a half mile, this portion of Jack's Road is the fastest of the day. And if you're really going for it, you can cross over 50 miles an hour, as I tempered myself the first time down, because these speeds can get pretty scary not knowing what's ahead. But fortunately on race day, there's a lot of signage at the bottom, because even as we were filming, Vic missed the turn because it's as much of a right angle you can get turning to your left, with the slope not doing you any favors against the G-forces. And if you play it right, you can really whip your way around the turn. But now at mile 8 for the lap, the question is, will you slow down for water? And also, can you do your best not to litter on the course? This section I refer to as the hairpin, with 2 successive sharp turns that won't be difficult to navigate at these speeds, but you should prepare to ramp it up on the return, maxing out your velocity, exiting out on this big left turn, because your momentum will really pay off on the second Jack's climb, or else the road will feel sticky really fast, with this pitch being just over a third of a mile, that if you don't make the effort, someone around you will. Getting over this hump is a great spot for recovery, where you'll have at least a minute of low stress riding on the descent. And this year, you won't worry about the roadway having to be bi-directional, but your concern is coming off of it, as I've consistently overshot the turn, because this is another point riders can overlook the speeds they can attain, setting the tone for this 3¼ mile sector, where you'll still want to push the power on the incline a half mile in, though it's always been the same issue for me on the next descent to not handle this tight turn with elegance. There's not a lot of drama left on this segment other than the slight 1/3 of a mile incline coming out of that turn, as I was noticing my 38mm were handling the course well after riding 42s last year, with this eastern portion bringing down our heart rates, allowing us to explore the space, observing a much different landscape than what we started with, riding along the border over Reservation Road, looking out towards Salinas and the Gabalon Range. And while this may not be reflected on your maps, the surface almost feels like pavement passing through the gate, and certainly exiting Crescent Bluff Road, but only briefly, with the temperature heating up on our 4th climb of the day. Border Road could have been more specifically named for the sand at the start, and I list this as a climb despite only having a slight grade, because the pockets can slow you down unless you avoid them altogether, as the profile wouldn't suggest a heavy effort. But I found myself needing to get out of the saddle for efficiency, leaving behind the loosest segment of the day, with the gravel on Addington Road, quite the juxtaposition, and this 30-second effort the only one of note on it, as the exit out onto Watkins Grade Road marks the lap's halfway point. We cooled our jets, being our first time out, knowing we'd be passing a popular crossing point where on race day you may be getting into TT position, needing that pace, making that turn 3/4 of a mile down, where you should be turning your legs more than I did, as you want to keep momentum as long as possible up this 1/3 of a mile pitch on Henneken's Ranch Road. The turnoff to Lion's Revenge signals another half mile of reprieve. Strange to have the same surface as on the opposite side of the course, but beware of picking up too much speed, because you'll have to bank sharply on your first segment of signal track that's so flat and short you would only have time to make minute rice on it. The exit brings us back to 1.25 miles of Fire Road, And while there's little undulation here, it is a bit of a heat check with some early sand. These pockets are few, so be a little less tentative than us, and the surface will be less of an issue onto Parker Flats Road that should have the word false in the middle of its name, as the asphalt feels like a sticky grade not being complemented by the wind. Turning onto Watkins Spur Road, the climbs start to have more character as this 2/3 of a mile jaunt starts pleasantly. That shifts when you return to Watkins Grade Road. Hard to gauge the slope or length with your eyes, as the slope only maxes out in the mid-single digits that you now use the straightness on the other side to efficiently get down. Returning to our previously paved misnomered road but in the opposite direction, our next sector turns left after previously just being in this intersection, bringing our featured single track segment of the day. And while this component has been included in earlier editions, this 1 mile stretch offers a completely smooth surface different than others that trends mostly up, although very slightly, where consistently turning is going to be your bigger concern, making sure you're always moving up and down, shifting into the right gear. But no matter what, you'll love this segment, how it puts you in a different mind frame, if just only for a few minutes. Turning back from the most western point of the day, it's the straightest segment you'll have in the XY axis, where you'll be flirting with your top gear for this 1.5 miles on Eucalyptus Road that pitches up at the end, merging with last year's course that should be familiar for the next 4 miles, beginning with the Little Moab road climb, with the elevation front-loaded in the first third of the mile, punching above its weight at 7.5%, the most exposed you'll be today to the wind that historically can be with or against you here. So even when the pitch eases up for the next third of a mile, you may need a little extra in the tank to get there. While the rest of the dirt on the segment trends downward, like on this right-hand turn, you may be faster on successive laps and on other technical aspects like the chicane, not to mention the straightaway on Machine Gun Flats Road with more space to pass this year. And while you can take advantage of the slope crossing Addington, that always sets me up for an overshoot down onto Barlow Canyon Road. With a final momentum saving effort for the lap, you'll get a good minute of rest on the other side, ready to bottom out. But this year going straight through, as I imagine the gate will be open to give you a push up the toughest climb of the day, which doesn't sound bad with the overall numbers, as the superlative doesn't apply to the early paved portion, nor immediately turning off onto dirt. But you know, at that moment, making the left onto Barlow Spur Road, with this wall line incline looking straight at you, that's rock cobbler-esque in nature, averaging over 15% for a quarter of a mile. That alone could possibly be manageable, but add in maintaining a line while avoiding the varying levels of ruts, everyone will be in the red as it eases off. The final third of the climb does taper off a bit, but there are 4 steps where you'll need to push a little more, with the reward seeing our last peak ahead, not aided by the bumpiest descent of the day, where getting a little more speed into Lookout Ridge would have been appreciated, because if you've done this climb in previous editions, I would have thought this would have been the day's toughest, and the early readiness had it trending in that direction too. Though the 2/5 of a mile at 12% didn't change, the surface did, feeling far more smoother than previous, aiding in your tempo, as I felt like I had something left after the effort, with Lookout Ridge not completely flattening out after, convincing yourself there's just a few rollers ahead, getting a look back where you're headed into Laguna Seca, where you'll make a hard right to make your way into the raceway, and a little effort to get to the top, before dropping down on the inside and whipping around your final turn, where no matter how many laps you finish, you'll feel complete.
For those people that wanted single track, we got it, and it was some of the best that we've had so far. Overall, I think it's a smoother course. but really it's the last 10% of the lap that's really going to put people in the red. Hopefully everyone's got the right gearing, so be prepared.
Whether you're a first timer or here to see where you stack up, Fort Ord is a great place for all types of riding.
So thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to support our travels, please hit the like button, go to our shop, or support us on Patreon so we can bring you more.
From the state of dirt.
You knew that.
I did. I've heard it before.